Hi everyone, I'm Kat from the Littlestown Library of the Adams County Library System, and welcome to our true crime book club review, where I tell you about the nonfiction book that I read for True Crime Book Club to give you an idea of the kinds of stories that we read and share together when we meet. Just a heads up for those of you who are not fans of true crime, this review does include discussions of violence against women. I'm going to keep it non-specific, but I know that this subject matter is very sensitive for some people. So if that is not your cup of tea, then please feel free to skip this video. So when deciding what to read for the True Crime Book Club, I'm trying to focus on the victim or the victims rather than the perpetrator. Something that has always disturbed me is the adoration that some people just heap upon serial killers. I mean, you have people who, are fans of serial killers who write them love letters. Some people will even marry them and stuff. And the fact that someone who murders multiple people, often in horrible ways, that they can even have fans is just incomprehensible to me. And sometimes, actually a lot of times, unfortunately, the media can portray these killers in a very sympathetic light, or a titillating light, which is also weird, because I know that just a short while ago, there was that Jeffrey Dahmer docuseries, and people were just swooning over Jeffrey Dahmer, and I'm like, I don't get it, and I don't want to give any more positive attention to those people because they have done horrible things. So with that in mind, I decided that during the spooky season of October, that I would read about the victims of England's most notorious serial killer to discuss at the beginning of November. And the book is called The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenhold. And it endeavors to humanize and give back the lives and names of these women. And it is, as the author puts it, an attempt to restore their dignity. And so like many of those who are only passingly familiar with Jack the Ripper and the events that took place in Whitechapel, London in 1888, I thought that the Ripper attacked, murdered, and mutilated prostitutes. That is the narrative that generally is told. However, the deep dive research that was done for The Five suggests otherwise. And the five women, Polly, Annie, Catherine, Elizabeth, and Mary Jane, they, like so many women who ended up on the streets of London, sometimes may have engaged in prostitution as a means of survival. For Polly, Annie, and Catherine, there's no hard evidence to suggest that this was their main livelihood. Day work, cleaning, hawking cheap wares, and begging were the usual sources of the pennies that they needed to find lodging and to drown their sorrows in a bottle. Elizabeth and Mary Jane were prostitutes, at least at some point, although only Mary Jane ever actually worked in a brothel. But in all five cases, there were no signs of a struggle, and there was no noise to alert neighbors, despite there being people around, even late at night. So that suggests that the Ripper attacked and killed them while they were asleep, either from exhaustion or from being drunk, rather than luring them in while they were plying their trade on the street corner. So it suggests that he, like so many serial killers, was a coward who attacked people who were helpless and could not fight back. But the narrative that was presented for all 5 women was that they were all just hookers. And in the Victorian mindset, hookers were worthless. You know, a woman on the street was automatically a whore and therefore wasn't worth anything. She kind of got what she deserved, because that makes sense. But the 5 really goes into the lives of each of these women, and shows how they were victims not just of Jack the Ripper, but also of homelessness, of destitution, alcoholism, and Victorian moralism. Many of them did have families. They had been married. Many of them had children. But then either they split from their husbands, or their husbands died. And all of them became alcoholics at some point, because life on the London streets was so horrible that the only way to get through the day was by drinking. And the few systems that were in place to ostensibly help the poor and destitute, which again always had that tinge of, well, if you're poor, you deserve it, attitude that that was prevalent at the time, and unfortunately remains prevalent a lot today. The workhouses that were ostensibly there to give people who were homeless and destitute a place to work and a place to have food and a roof over their head, those places were so terrible that these 5 women, along with many other people of the poor in London, would rather sleep on the street and take their chances there of being killed, assaulted. They would rather do that than go into those workhouses, which tells you some of the condition, how bad the conditions had to be in those workhouses in order for people to risk their lives sleeping on the street, or trying to find lodging in doss houses or flop houses and things like that. So I really, this book was heartbreaking, but it was also a very, very good look into what the lives of Victorian women were like, and how easy it was for anyone to fall on hard times and to never be able to get back out again. So I think that Hallie Rubenhold really did what she set out to do. She really did bring back the humanity and the stories and the voices of Polly, Annie, Catherine, Elizabeth, and Mary Jane, and showed that, you know, behind these mutilated corpses were just ordinary women who fell on hard times and did not receive the help that they needed in order to survive. So I highly, highly recommend that if you are interested in the Victorian era, either from the perspective of history, from the perspective of feminism, of the rights of women or the working poor or homelessness, or any multiple aspects. There's multiple ways that that you can approach the 5 and this work, but I highly recommend it. I think it is a very, very good book. It is very well written, very thoroughly researched, and very narrative, as it divides the book into 5 parts, one for each of the women, tracing them from birth through death. With what records we have. Some of them have more extensive records than others, obviously, so some of the stories are a little more fleshed out than others, but I think that she does a very, very good job of doing that. So I highly recommend that if you get the chance to read The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper, written by Hallie Rubenhold, and if you would like to join us for the True Crime Book Club, we meet on the first Thursday of the month at 2 o'clock at the Littlestown Library. You can read any true crime nonfiction book of your choice and bring that to share with the group. So hopefully we will see you there. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we will see you at the Littlestown Library. Bye.